I've noticed something this season. Like a cold, dark wind in the air. Something just seems off. And I think that something is sort of a shift in the general player base of Overwatch. So, I've noticed recently that no one really seems to give a fuck about meta as much anymore. Initially, I attributed this to rank because, those of you who don't know, I've lost probably about 1,000 rank points. My entire Overwatch career has been one gigantic downward trend in SR, probably because I mainly just play solo instead of part of a group. So I sort of attributed the lack of people caring about the team composition and meta to the fact that I was just usually going lower and lower in rank. But based on what I've seen from other people playing and the comments that I'm seeing on Twitter and YouTube and Reddit and stuff, I feel like it's not just my experience. It's something that's actually happening to the entire player base of the game, regardless of your rank. And I've got a couple theories as to why that is, but I want to give some examples first. Almost always now, when you jump into a game, well, 2-2-2 is dead. It used to be back in the day, everyone wanted 2 tanks, 2 healers, 2 damage, and you don't really get that anymore, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not saying that you should always have to have, 1/3 of each class on each team. That's far from what I'm trying to say. I do think most people generally see that as ideal, though, but the problem is no one really likes playing tanks or healers. Obviously, there's people that do have their favorites as a tank or a healer. However, if you want to play a flex position, if you're putting it as your job to fill whatever the team needs, you'll never play DPS. Ever. Because there's almost always people on the left side of the hero select screen that are picking the damage-dealing characters rather than the people who generally sit, back, provide support to the rest of the team, the tanks and the healers and the support players. I'd say a small exception would be Symmetra, because people still like playing her because they can do some damage. Anyways, so that's the problem with trying to play Flex, and I think a lot of people are also realizing that playing Flex actually loses you SR. And I've briefly mentioned this in one of my videos, like you should try and take damage, because if you're good on damage, then you will gain the most rank. But if you're always trying to fill whatever the team needs, chances are someone they're not doing their job on a certain class. You end up switching off halfway through, and my theory, I've never been able to even find a way to test this, is that switching halfway through the match, it's obviously going to cost you medals, which technically your performance and your SR gain isn't based on medals, but it is based on your performance with that hero compared to other people's performance. So at the very worst, you're probably performing not as well with them because they're not your preferred character, but also you're like switching, which can sort of throw off your dynamic, your flow if you really have to, and you're losing more and gaining less SR, whether or not you win or lose. It's obviously ideal to win if it's going to cost you a loss, but if you're going to lose or win anyway, you probably want to be one-tricking someone all the time. And sadly, I think a lot of people are coming to the same conclusion, and it's causing a lot of people to just not want to play any given class. Sorry, to not play any given flex class, when instead they could be just one-tricking a DPS and gaining as much SR as they can get over time. Because I've been there, you've been there, you're in like a losing game, your team's just not switching, or they're not being the ideal class, and so you're just like, why would I switch to someone I'm gonna do less with? If I'm gonna be losing SR on this match, I may as well be losing, 31 SR instead of 33 SR. So there's, I think, probably a slight difference in that, and more than that, I think a shift in the general player base is caused by the fact that the game, when it was in its, like a year ago, like probably the first year of release, there's still a lot of people that hadn't heard of it, and they were trying it out. They were like, oh, this game Overwatch it's a pretty fun time. They played it after work for a few months or whatever, but they didn't really, they maybe looked up a handful of videos and stuff, but they didn't know about the deep meta or anything like that. And now a lot of the more casual player base has sort of dropped off, and you are now getting to the more serious players, the people who are now taking it more seriously, which you would hope would mean people that are caring more about the meta and trying to win and working with the team, but I've found it's quite the opposite. People are taking it less seriously now because the game has been out for so long, and because they've seen that their switches off the off meta aren't being punished as much, and people are just being generally greedy. And I'm falling into this category myself. I'm actively trying not to. I personally try to not be toxic ever. Anytime I feel like toxic feelings well up in me, I will scream obscenities in my room, but then I will type something in chat like, "Hey guys, let's stay positive." Like, that's something I'm trying to actively do to be just a better person in general and a better player of online games. But see, this season, all across the board, I've just noticed the exact same comments from people saying the general meta of the public matches in this game, they're just kind of going to shit. It's sad because early on, it was actually really common for everyone to want to work together. I remember every team, it had to have 2-2-2. The person who didn't want to follow that meta, everyone was like, well, he's throwing this game, that sucks. And they would all flame him or whatever, which I'm not saying is a good thing, but I'm saying people actually cared about the meta back then. And now, you're like, if we got a healer and a tank, that's great. And then 4 DPS, that's generally fine. And that's what I'm seeing most people's reaction towards the game be, and I think it's really sad because this is a team game and it benefits well from people wanting to be part of a team, but unfortunately, whether or not it's true, it seems to be most people's opinion that they have the most fun and the most success if they just kind of do whatever the fuck they want and expect a small minority of people to work around them. And I think that Blizzard would probably do well to address this in one way or another. And it's really upsetting that I can't, for all of my thinking, I can't think of any suggestions. The only possible way to maybe even suggest this would be to do like a hero select and then not switching sort of thing. Some people have suggested selecting a suggested role as you start each match, and I think that's an alright idea, but it also kind of goes against the heart of the game. But that's just because people want to have a lot of fun and a lot of action, and they want to get into it in the FPS. This isn't a MOBA. This isn't Dota 2. This isn't League of Legends. You can't like pre-select a hero ahead of time. There's lots of reasons to be switching off your hero mid-match. It's a very important aspect of the game, and if you're forced to pre-select that, or even forced to just pre-suggest a hero choice that you want to pick, I think it takes away from the game. So I don't know what they could do. The problem is really it's human nature. Like, we all want to succeed, and it's the 3 prisoners dilemma, except with 6 people instead of 3. Every person is looking out for themselves because there's no guarantee that the other 5 people in a public game are going to be donating to the team's success. Like I said, when the game was first coming out, I think everyone was like, yeah, Overwatch, this is a team game. So much team composition, it works out. And now that it's down to more serious players, the more people who've got hundreds and hundreds of hours into the game already, they're just kind of like, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm getting placed with 5 randoms anyway, so who fucking knows if we're gonna win or lose. I'll just, whatever, I'll just insta-lock Soldier 76, or I'll just insta-lock whoever the fuck I want to play, Pharah, and then hopefully we have team members that'll switch around me, and that's just, I'm just seeing so much of that. That is the vast majority. That used to be like 10 to 20% of games, and now that's like 80 to 90% of games, and it still, results in generally having a tank or healer, so people don't really complain. No one really wants to be the person who throws the game that hard. And luckily, I don't think that's ever going to change. I don't think it's going to get so bad that the general player base will always choose to not have a necessary class. There's always going to be, the person who's like, fine, I'll be the heal bitch this round. Mercy's getting a rework soon, so hopefully it's not just people relinquish to playing Mercy that don't want to. But I do think it takes away from the heart of the game, the fact that everyone is just kind of looking out for themselves at this point in time. So hopefully Blizzard does something to rework that and rethink about that. I don't fucking know what it could be, but I'm not super hopeful based on the fact that it's been like a year and Reinhardt's Ultimate has still never gotten an artwork rework. That would have taken like 2 seconds. Genji's Climb has never really been fucking fixed. They have fixed some important things, but a lot of things that have been in the game forever is a fucking coin toss. And Blizzard is a company, they're a real thing that exists in the world. They're not omnipotent. They have resources to allocate, and you don't expect them to fix everything all the time. That's unrealistic, but you would hope that they'd prioritize things that are taking away from the spirit of the game, even if they're not fixing these like minor character glitches. Hopefully this is a pretty big thing on their radar, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually playing the game less right now. I'm actually playing a lot more PUBG, and I'm even going back to Heroes of the Storm because it's gotten a decent fix recently. But as far as playing Overwatch goes, it used to be like a fucking 5 hours a night thing, and now it's just like regularly, probably like 2 or 3 days a week. I'm just like, I don't really feel like it. I don't feel like putting my fucking hat into the ring of a bunch of people that are just looking out for themselves. It's a team game, and it should be treated like one, and I just don't feel like it's not. I feel like it's not being treated like one right now.